Spring starts at the Home Depot, and we are bringing the heat to your backyard this season. Fire up the flavor with our wide variety of grills for under $300, like the Next Grill 4-burner gas grill that's perfect for hosting your spring cookout. Then set the scene and turn your outdoor space into the go-to spot with patio sets for every budget. Bring it this season with grills that deliver flavor and patios that set the vibe from the Home Depot. Start your spring with low prices guaranteed at the Home Depot. Exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
This old house is supported by True Green. A thriving spring lawn doesn't happen on its own. It requires the right combination of seasonal maintenance, nutrient support, and a plan tailored to your lawn's unique needs. True Green's lawn care experts understand exactly what your grass needs in spring, from proper feeding and soil preparation to treatment strategies designed to set your lawn up for long-term success. Whether you're tackling early season weeds, refreshing thinning turf, or building a healthier foundation for the months ahead, the pros at True Green will ensure it's done right. As America's #1 lawn care company, True Green has more than 200 branches nationwide, serving over 2.3 million customers locally. To learn more about True Green's range of lawn care services, visit truegreen.com to create a customized spring lawn care plan that gives your lawn the boost it needs to grow greener, thicker, and stronger this season.
From LAist and APM American Public Media, it's This Old House Radio Hour. I'm Jen Largis. Got bees? Don't exterminate. Call a hive relocation specialist instead.
If you hire a professional beekeeper, usually those honeybees go back into the system, meaning honey production or pollination, so back into our food system.
Behind a set of gates in the Hollywood Hills, former Seinfeld writer Spike Feresten found a house with a speakeasy, a hunting basement, and a story to tell.
When we went down to the basement, there were giant meat hooks and butcher paper and a big sink that you could tell was used to drain blood from recently shot creatures.
Planning to do half the job yourself? We tell you why contractors are cautious. All of this, plus we're answering your home improvement questions at 877-864-7460. Coming up next. It's This Old House Radio Hour. I'm Jen Largis. Got bees? Before you call an exterminator, you might want to call a beekeeper instead. Hive relocation is becoming a popular way to remove bees while protecting the pollinators our food system depends on. Alicia Bixler, better known online as How Was Your Day, Honey, joins us now to explain what you should know before relocating a bee colony. Alicia, would you encourage someone to try to relocate bees themselves?
Never.
No,
Never.
This is not a DIY project.
Please don't do it. I've had many calls. I recently had one where a wife called me because her husband tried to do it and he was stung so many times he had to go to the emergency room.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't suggest it. There's a lot of cheap bee suits online and people can get hurt.
What is the typical price difference between relocating versus an extermination? Is it much more costly?
Usually beekeepers will charge double what an extermination cost would be. Generally, a price can go anywhere from $75 to thousands, depending on equipment that needs to be used.
And what are the benefits of relocating versus exterminating?
If you hire a professional beekeeper, usually those honeybees go back into the system, meaning honey production or pollination, so back into our food system. So pollinating nuts, seeds, berries, things that not only as a human that we eat, but also birds and wildlife also need for food. So 1 in 3 bites that we take are because of honeybees.
So do you ever recommend extermination?
Yes, if the bees are overly defensive and someone's in danger of getting stung, if there's children, lots of pets around, or if it's a job where people are going to spend thousands of dollars in repair and in equipment for me to remove it, I don't think it's worth it. Recently, I had someone contact me because they had a brand new tile roof. Honeybees moved in. It would have cost them thousands of dollars to repair the broken tile roof after I removed the bees.
So let's say you want to keep bees around and you understand the benefits of having pollinators and having bees, but you don't necessarily want a hive in your yard. What can you do?
I always suggest plant native trees, plant native shrubs, and flowers. We really want to try to attract our native pollinators. They are the most important, not only bee, but even wasps. They're so important for our ecosystem. It's going to keep them in your property. They don't travel as far as honeybees do.
Okay.
Honeybees will go about 2 to 5 miles for a nectar source or a pollen source, yes. So I would suggest if you don't want bees in your home, make sure your home is sealed up tight.
If you're hoping to seal your home against them, do they have any favorite spot that you see them most often that we should pay special attention to?
Soffits, walls, especially around electrical or old cable lines. A lot of times the cable company will pull those lines out, but they don't seal it. Around electrical boxes don't get sealed either. Seal all that up. Soffits will crack and wear as your house shifts. Seal all that up. Just a yearly check is all you need to do. If you can put your pinky or a pencil in the location, a honeybee can fit inside. There are some repellent oils. They don't last long enough to make a big difference, in my opinion. Maybe with 48 hours, they're washed away. So the best thing you can do is just make sure your home is sealed up tight. Use caulking. Cement is really important too, because spray foam does not work. Honeybees, rats, squirrels will chew through spray foam. You want to use a silicone caulking works well, or cement, or 1/8 hardware cloth.
So if you're hiring someone to relocate your bees, are there credentials that you should look for?
I would say look for a licensed beekeeper that has insurance. It's a dangerous job, just as you would hire someone to come trim your trees. They could be injured easily. It's the same thing with bees. It's not uncommon for a beekeeper to go into anaphylactic shock from a bee sting.
Wow. And when you're calling in a professional, is it just time is of the essence? The sooner you notice something, the better it is to call right away?
Absolutely. Honeybees can build a very large nest within a matter of a day, 24 hours.
What kind of damage can a beehive create if they do end up building inside your home?
Generally, if you have a wood frame home or honeybees living in a soffit, and for whatever reason, if the bees die and are not protecting the comb any longer, the comb will essentially rot out. If that happens, honey will drip down your home. Honey is very acidic too, so it can peel paint. It can be smelly. Maggots will come, so you have maggots coming into your home. It can be pretty messy.
Okay. So it's important to remove the hive if possible. Avoid it is really the best case scenario.
Yes, try to dig it out as much as you can, even if you have them exterminated. Some pest control companies don't want to deal with having to open up the wall and remove the large nest. I mean, I've seen 6 to 10 foot beehives full of honey, hundreds of pounds of honey. And that's a lot of honey. It has to go somewhere. I would say always open up a wood frame home.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this information. I find this incredibly interesting.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was Alicia Bixler. For more bee information, check out @HowWasYourDayHoney on Instagram. Right now, we're answering your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Yes, good morning. This is Jay from Jefferson, Maine. How are you today?
Good, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Awesome. What's your question today?
So, my wife and I have an 1850s farmhouse with dirt floors, fieldstone foundation, and 8+ foot ceilings. We are wondering if a vapor barrier or anything else would help mitigate the dampness and musty smell in the living spaces.
To help answer your question, we have Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, here on the line.
Hey, Jay, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Zach, how about yourself?
I'm excited for this one. This is an easy question.
We don't hear that from you very often.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how much time you want to spend down there. I'll give you the...
Fair enough.
Let's go on a little fact-finding mission. So it's so damp and wet in the basement that it's smelling upstairs.
Yes. So there's no standing water. I do have a sump pump in there, but it doesn't really run. It's just musty upstairs in the living space.
Is there anything in this basement? HVAC equipment, anything like that?
Yes, the boiler is downstairs, well pump and oil tank.
Got it. Okay. How much of that 8 foot is underground?
Gosh, that's a great question. I would say a good 6.5, 7 feet of it.
Okay, so just a little bit of foundation sticking up around the perimeter.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll give you my perfect world solution, which involves endless gobs and gobs of cash, right? And then we'll back out of it. How does that sound?
All right. I like it.
All right. So you should be able to take your finger, if you looked at a cross section of your house. So you've got the foundation and the walls and the roof. You should be able to take your finger and draw a line around your house in a perfect scenario, showing a barrier that travels 360 degrees around your house that separates your indoors from your outdoors, right? And you don't have that because you have a fieldstone foundation, which is porous and has a lot of holes in it. And then you have a dirt floor, which is porous. And in the winter, when you have heat on, you have the stack effect. So cold air falls, right, which is causing that heat to go up through your roof. So you're basically pulling all your fresh air in the heating season through your basement because there's a vacuum. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Okay.
So what we would like to do is create a barrier in your basement. And conventional tactics typically have people insulating the ceiling of the basement or the floor system of the first floor because it's sort of right there in your face, right? And you say, I want a separation. But that's not what I'm going to suggest because you have equipment and utilities in your basement that we would ideally like to be within that sort of envelope, right? So,
right. And we don't like mice living in the...
Exactly. We don't want rodents. We don't want anything in there. So one way I have done this is I will take a dimple mat, which is basically like a big 8-foot roll of plastic that has dimples in it. And I will put that on the fieldstone wall because the fieldstone wants to breathe, right? If we just put insulation directly to it, that changes the environment it's lived in its whole life successfully. And we don't really want to modify that by restricting airflow. So we put that dimple mat on the walls, and then we excavate the basement floor 4 to 6 inches so we can put 4 to 6 inches of gravel in. And then you basically created a bathtub in your basement that will keep all the water below that. It will allow the water to drain because that's what the gravel's for. So it'll bring it to your sump pump. And that's sort of your, I have no budget and I want to live in this house for the rest of my life. Perfect scenario.
Okay.
That's the gold standard. Now we can kind of back out what's actually important to you. So you're like, well, that's great, but that seems like way too much of a project. Then you can identify, like, based on how much money you want to invest into this, what are the things that are creating the worst symptom and just addressing those.
Okay. Fantastic. So I don't need to be concerned about like mold growing up underneath that barrier?
If the barrier is between the earth or ideally gravel and the in the floor system, you do not need to worry about that because it's outside your envelope.
Got you. Okay. Well, this certainly helped my decision, and much appreciate the time.
Oh, our pleasure.
Again, thank you guys.
All right, take care.
Coming up, we answer more of your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. 7460. It's This Old House Radio Hour. Today's episode is supported by fast-growing trees. Spring is here, and it's the best time to get your yard ready with fast-growing trees. Every plant is grown with expert care, receiving the right water, nutrients, and sunlight it needs before it reaches your home, so it can thrive in your yard. Plus, their Alive and Thrive guarantee means your plants arrive healthy and ready to grow, no green thumb required. You even get ongoing support from plant experts 7 days a week to ensure you can grow with confidence. Right now, stock up for spring with the plants and trees you need. Select varieties are up to half off. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code THISOLDHOUSE at checkout. That's an additional 20% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code THISOLDHOUSE. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code THISOLDHOUSE. Now is the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use This Old House to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
You're listening to This Old House Radio Hour. I'm Jen Largess. Right now we're tackling your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Or you can leave us a voicemail anytime. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, how are you? This is Tom Henning. I'm calling from Moraga, California.
Hi, Tom. What's your question today?
I volunteer in our town's park, and I maintain the bocce ball courts. The two courts are approximately 80 feet long, I'd say about 12 feet wide. My problem is dilemma is trying to keep the courts level. There's a slight downslope with each court, and it's driving me nuts.
Well, luckily, we've got Jen Nawada, landscape contractor for the show, here to help. Jen, I think we're moving to California. I want to live in a town that has bocce ball courts.
I know. Tom, let's go. How's it going? Aside from your bocce court. And it's like, that sounds regulation size. I just put one in, right? That's typical, 80 by 12?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jen, I didn't know that there was such a market for bocce ball courts. You said you've installed one. How did you do yours?
Well, basically, it came out of the boredom of COVID, and these homeowners have 3 kids, and we created many things in their yard, and the bocce court was one of them.
Naturally, of course.
Yes. Yeah. So where it's washing out on the lower part of the slope, what do you have retaining the edges?
So the two courts have wooden borders, and then the ground has a base of gravel or crushed rock.
Mm-hmm.
Then above that, it's kind of a strange material. It's almost clay-like. And then on top of that, I'd say about 3 or 4 inches of oyster shell flour.
Okay. So on the side that it's washing out where the boards are, I would check it. Are the boards level all the way around?
It is. It's not washing out on the sides. It's just when you stand at one end of the court and roll the ball towards the other end, there's a slight downslope for the whole 80-foot distance. And I'm trying to get it so it's perfectly level at each end.
Can you refill the base and the oyster shell on top and use a compactor, and so it all is agitated and locks into place?
I've tried that. I don't have a compactor. I just have one of those handheld stamps.
The tampers, yeah.
I tried using a screed.
Mm-hmm.
On my way to work this morning, I was thinking about tapping in 2 narrow 1-by-1 boards on either side of the court on the walls,
mm-hmm.
and just make sure that's level the length of the court. But it's driving me nuts.
Yeah, I'm sure it's driving you crazy. You're like, oh, the slope.
Jenny said he tried something called a screed. Can you explain what that is?
So a screed is a tool. It's like either a long pole or just something flat in metal. It's like if you're baking, you have flour in a baking cup and you're using a knife to level off the top.
Exactly. It's never been level. And at one time we used sand,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, what? And I was new to bocce, and I was like, man, I thought the balls were supposed to roll, but everybody was used to that beach bocce thing. So I said, I volunteered. It's like, can I fix these courts? And then the next thing you know, I'm buying 50-pound bags of crushed oyster flour,
and that just washes out.
It's fine now. It just rolls downhill. And if you're the other end, everyone's complaining that they're having to roll uphill.
Well, so when you screed it out, so like you use your metal pole to like just like level it and screed it out, right? Like, and then you tamp it down in the corners of the washout, right?
Well, I haven't screed it out yet. So what I have so far is the tools is a big heavy roller,
mm-hmm.
and a tamper and some rakes and a broom, and that's it.
I mean, that all sounds perfect. I would definitely do the wood around the side and make sure all four sides are level. And then fill
just so
in.
I have that. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. It needs to be level. Mm-hmm. So we first created the outside edge, and you used wood, right? And I used cobblestone, and we used the laser level. We set them all up and made sure everything is level, and then had like a little 2-inch reveal, like a little lip around the entire court. And then we installed 3/4-inch stone and compacted it just to make sure it's not going to heave and has proper
Mm-hmm.
drainage. And then we used stone dust on the top, and you used oyster shells. But just the outside edge was the most important to create the whole level surface on the inside. But using a laser.
My outside edges are heavy lumber,
mm-hmm.
and then at each end, a wall comes up to about a little above knee height, so you can sit down and
mm-hmm.
watch.
Yeah, totally. We had a wall actually as well. Like, that's a great idea. But I think if you put the laser level on it and then you could adjust your boards, that could really help you.
Yeah, it's 80 feet long. That's
bring a friend and a 12-pack of beer and you'll be all set.
These are the woes of maintaining a bocce ball court.
Yeah. It could be a fun project.
Well, Patrick, we thank you for the call.
Well, thank you for all your time.
All right, nice chatting with you.
You take care.
Call us now at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Or you can leave us a voicemail. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, my name's Ann Hartwell, and I'm calling from Tampa, Florida.
Hi, Ann. What's your question today?
So I've replaced a few windows. I suppose I should tell you first I have asbestos siding.
Okay.
And I have replaced a few windows, and that was a total nightmare. And I have about a dozen more to go. So,
oh boy.
Yeah. So my question is it worth me taking off all the asbestos siding to do all the other ones at the same time? Because I've read different articles and seen things about insulating an old house. And this one doesn't hold heat or cold hardly at all. There's no insulation.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is it worth it to remove all of the siding, cladding, and can I put some kind of insulation in this house in Florida to make it worth my time?
Absolutely. Well, to help answer your question, we have Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, on the line. Zach, you know a lot about this.
I do. I unfortunately know the backwards component because we're in a different climate than you are, but we'll just flip ourselves around so we're trying to keep the heat out instead of trying to keep the heat in, and we'll be just fine.
Just stand on your head while you answer the question.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
So So you replaced a couple windows and it was a nightmare because of the asbestos siding?
Yes. A friend helped me and we did a few in a bedroom. We took off very painstakingly the asbestos siding and then replace the windows and put them back, the asbestos siding back up. And so I'm like trying to weigh, is it worth it? Is it possible? Because I've got conflicting information. Some people are like, oh yes, you can, as long as you, vapor bury it and all of that. But then other people, the neighbor did it, took all the cladding off, and they didn't put any insulation in and put up all new, outside cladding. So there's just conflicting information.
Typically what I do as a professional, I can't, it's legal for homeowners to remove their asbestos siding as long as they do it, correctly. They can handle that, but I can't do it as a professional. I need to hire someone who is certified to do that. So whenever possible, we do it, remove it all at once because, if you hire one of these remediation contractors for one job and one job and one job, it'll add up much faster than just having them come for, one 3-day job and they just take it away. So that's typically what I do. And then I'm able to handle the windows and reclad.
If she were to take off the siding, is there a way to add insulation after that? And before you put on your new siding, what does that look like?
Absolutely. So there's a couple options. If she has no insulation at all, she can cut holes in the house and blow insulation into the cavities. That's your insulation. And then you could also apply a rigid insulation to the outside of the house.
And everything I've read is the real concern is that the moisture, because it's, 80-90% humidity outside, and that you'd get water in, and then you'd get some kind of, moisture issue that would cause mold or something. And so, that's my big concern, right? Because they're meant to breathe, they say, as an old house.
Right. So basically, if you're going to seal up the house, you have to seal it up in a way that you're managing vapor. And I don't think that's something most homeowners can tackle on their own. So the alternative is to select products that are vapor open. So these are fiberglass, cellulose, mineral wool, wood fiber, and you want to avoid products that are vapor closed, like closed cell foam, because you don't want water trying to dry out of your wall system and then condensating on the inside or outside of that foam and causing mold and the issues we're talking about. So your best insurance against having vapor issues that lead to mold and rot are choosing products that are vapor open. So wrapping your house in a layer of foam may be a bad idea for you. What wouldn't be a bad idea is maybe blowing in insulation that is vapor open, that can dry. Select products that are vapor open, that water can get into, can saturate, and then dry out of. And that'll be your best chance at keeping this old house comfortable and durable, because it's made of wood, and wood really wants to dry out well. So you have that in your favor already.
Awesome. So like a big blanket kind of, or a towel, rather than, because a lot of people have told me, some type of vapor barrier. And so this is fabulous. Yay.
Right. Think about wrapping yourself in a wool sweater. You don't want to wrap yourself in a garbage bag. Right.
Thank you for that visual, Zach.
That's true. All right. Well, that's fabulous. Great. Thank you so much for the information. Very helpful.
And
awesome.
thanks
Our
for
pleasure.
the call.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Call us now to have your home improvement or DIY question answered. 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Or leave us a voicemail anytime. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, my name is Connor Bowen, and I'm calling from Kansas City, Missouri.
Hi, Connor. What's your question today?
So I had a question about painting, or I guess removing paint from my house. We just bought a 1925 Tudor-style home, and a portion of the exterior is painted brick. And I was curious what tools and methods the pros would recommend to remove the paint and, as much as we can, restore it to its original color.
Absolutely. Well, we've got This Old House general contractor Zach Detmore and painter Mauro Henrique here on the line, Who wants to go first to give them the bad news or the bad news?
Well, I have the perfect tool, Connor.
Go,
okay?
Zach, go.
And I'll preface this with saying I've never met a Connor I didn't like. What a great name that Connor is.
Thank you. I'm flattered.
If you're a horrible person, you will be my least favorite, Connor, because they've all been good up to this point. So the first tool you're going to need is money.
I thought you were going to say a sledgehammer.
No,
complete the sentence. Lots of it.
Lots of money. So it can be tough because the removing paint, the more texture to surface, the harder it gets, right, Mauro?
Yes. Yeah, especially brick.
Especially brick.
Especially bricks. Yeah, it's a very porous surface. As a matter of fact, we do a lot of fireplace box. And people ask me, you shouldn't paint that. I say, look, what I do every day is paint. I can't say no, right? I got bills to pay.
Yeah, right. Work is work.
But it's like this. I always said, once the paint goes on brick or any of the masonry surface, call it a day. It's done.
Yeah, you get one shot at it.
So no hope.
I mean, you can do a lot of work, but you still not get rid of all the paint.
Let's say we have limitless pockets here, Mauro. What is the technique to actually remove it? And can it be done in a DIY fashion, or is this like definitely a pro?
Most of the time, it's a pro kind of thing, because you're going to have the machine that's sandblasting. There's all sort of different blasting out there now that can take most of it. I don't believe taking all of it, but it's an intense work. Mm-hmm. So hard work is more. If you're taking the the exterior of your house, I think if you hire a pro, they might come with a better solution to get that done, but it's going to be a couple of damage to the surface, as I've seen before. So
the brick of the house is also worth understanding because you sort of have chemical stripping, maybe using steam to remove the product, sand blasting, or maybe dry ice blasting. The latter two, well, all of them being expensive and incredibly difficult, but all of these things have to be done in a small area because you could, if you have a very old soft brick, you could just destroy it with sand blasting, maybe with dry ice blasting. So that makes chemical stripping sort of higher up the list. But because of all those little like undulations, the chemical stripper is going to be very difficult to get out in the mortar joint. So I think whatever way you want to tackle this, start behind a bush somewhere low down, maybe start with a chemical stripper or a steam, see if you make any progress, and work in a section that's like 1 foot by 1 foot, time yourself. And then you could say, oh, wow, if I multiply this square
of my lifetime
over the whole house, that's a full-time job, right?
It might take me a year for that.
But you can just repaint that area if you don't like it.
You know what I would do? I would get like a brick color. All right? This is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Get like, some brick color, some brown reddish color, put a coat on the flat, and maybe redraw all the mortar lines or anything like that. But it's still a lot of work. I have done in small areas like this before.
Well, I will say we do plan on living in this house for the rest of our lives. So maybe I'll set my time frame to have this project complete in the next 50 years.
Yeah,
there you go.
Or do an addition on the front of the house.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we went out about 6.5 inches just in the front of the house.
Yeah, it's an extremely hard thing to do.
Well, before we let you go, Connor, I'll say this. If I read in the news at some point that, some Connor went postal at some point and lost his mind, we'll know you attempted to strip and do this project yourself, and it just took you over the edge.
That's my shortest path to fame right there.
Yeah, that's it. One option.
Yeah.
Well, Connor, even if you give it a try and hopefully you find success, but we wish you luck either way.
Thank you guys so much for your time.
All right. Good luck on it. Thank you.
Take care.
If you have a question for us, leave us a voicemail on our hotline, 877-864-7460, and we can answer your question next time. Coming up, Seinfeld writer Spike Feresten shows us his old house.
We would have people over. We were right above Sunset Boulevard. I remember Smash Mouth used to come over a lot, and we'd be jamming in the backyard till 3 or 4 in the morning. I guess I was hanging out with those guys, and the neighbors would be upset. But I just thought, this is what you do. You're in the Hollywood Hills. Why wouldn't you be playing a concert at 4 a.m. in the morning in what turned out to be a family neighborhood?
That's next on This Old House Radio Hour. Welcome back to This Old House Radio Hour. I'm Jen Largess. Coming up, why contractors won't touch your DIY projects. But first, we go to Hollywood, California. Spike Feresten wrote some of Seinfeld's most iconic episodes. But the one thing he took just as seriously was his own home, a 1939 Paul Williams designed house in the Hollywood Hills that allowed him to truly be the master of his domain.
I'm Spike Feresten. I'm a writer and producer, and this is my old house. I was a writer fresh off the David Letterman show, and I moved out to LA to write for Seinfeld. I had just gotten married, and we began looking for a home. So at that point, you're in the hands of a realtor. And one of the very first homes she showed us was this Paul Williams house. And immediately I thought, the little songwriter, singer Paul Williams, that guy? And she goes, no, different Paul Williams, African-American architect, really famous architect here in LA, designed Saks Fifth Avenue in Beverly Hills. He's one of these unsung heroes of architecture and really interesting guy. I said, well, that's fascinating, but I don't know that I can make a decision based on that. Here was this house right in West Hollywood on Doheny Drive, and it just felt right. It had big gates, which at the time I really wanted to be on the inside of, so no one could see. You know, when those gates opened and I saw this sloping driveway and this very traditional East Coast vibe of a house, I knew right away this was going to be the house that we were going to buy. The layout made sense. It just looked right. There was a perfect little dining room with a big stone fireplace. There was a speakeasy behind doors that you had to push in to open up. And here's this beautiful bar from 1939, red and yellow. There were 4 bar stools right there. It was very small. It was surrounded with glass and these original materials on the front. And we didn't change a thing. That was a repair. The hinges on the door that make it look right, and some of the backing and pieces of glass in the back that had cracked, and the restoration of the original design is the approach there. That, I think, could be the most authentic part of the house, except for the tiled bathrooms. One was pink and black, another one was green and black. Those were pretty much intact, and anything that had to be done in those rooms, the tile dictated the design choices. When we went down to the basement, there were giant meat hooks and butcher paper and a big sink that you could tell was used to drain blood from recently shot creatures. I said to the realtor, what's the story? And this home was built in 1939 for A.E. Wright, I guess who's this oil baron of Los Angeles, and his wife Cora. And they were both hunters. And it was important to them that they could bring back the bear or deer or whatever else they were shooting up in the hills and clean it and wrap it and put it in a fridge somewhere. And that detail in the basement was still left by the people who had owned the house and were selling it to us. It's funny because when we were talking to our contractor, he said, do you have anything like that you want to do? And we said, yeah, we want a cat condo on the second floor. We want to take this big closet. We want to put a vent in it so that the smell of the litter box goes up and out. And we want the cat to be able to access it through a cracked door. And the upper part can be the scratch post and a place to hang out. I wanted them to be comfortable too. I thought we'd all worked so hard. Why don't I give you a little home within our home that does a lot of different things and solves a lot of different problems? We would have people over. We were right above Sunset Boulevard. I remember Smash Mouth used to come over a lot, and we'd be jamming in the backyard till 3 or 4 in the morning. I guess I was hanging out with those guys, and the neighbors would be upset. But I just thought, this is what you do. You're in the Hollywood Hills. Why wouldn't you be playing a concert at 4 a.m. in the morning in what turned out to be a family neighborhood? The more I started learning about Paul Williams, the more I was all in on this guy. As an African-American guy who knew that this was going to be hard for him in LA. He had developed a skill set to deal with covert racism, like being able to read his plans upside down so he wouldn't have to be on the same side as people. He would keep his hands in his pocket when he met with you, so white people weren't uncomfortable that they would have to shake his hand. He had come up with these little mechanisms to do business and didn't let any of that racism hold him back. We were buying a lot of Paul Williams books. We had a designer, Kimberly Beals Schmidt, a contractor, and we sat everybody down and they asked those questions. How loyal do you want to be to and we said very. The challenge with an architect like that who's not around is when you get these questions you don't know answers to, you've just got to make a decision, and it can be unnerving. So you don't know if you're being disrespectful to the original design or not. If he was still around and I could ask him one question, I'd go, where did you get the hinges for the Speakeasy? Because one broke, and I can't find an exact replacement for it. Where did you get it? Home for me is about a feeling. A place that just feels right and feels relaxing, whatever it might be. It could be an apartment. It could be your home when you're married with your family and the people inside. But for me personally, it's the structure and how it feels. I've lived in Boston, I've lived in New York, I've lived in LA, and my favorite homes that I've lived in, sometimes from the photograph of it, I know that's the place. That quick snap judgment that tends to be right. And when I show up, I can feel it. And I forgive all the mistakes of the place because I know I can fix those little problems, but this place already feels right to me. I almost equate it to the way we pick partners in life. You can have a broken picker and be someone who picks a man or a woman to partner with and get divorced every 3 years. And you can have the same thing for a home. But I feel like my picker is really good if I'm listening to that intuition.
That was Spike Feresten. Check out new episodes of Spike's Car Radio on YouTube. The most important lessons in home improvement are sometimes the ones nobody ever tells you. So we like to check in with the pros to unpack the unspoken rules of the trades, the things contractors know, but homeowners don't. This week, why contractors won't touch your DIY project.
I bought a central heat system. I'm a do-it-yourselfer, and my problem is I cannot find a HVAC contractor who will come and work and do the hookups and do the actual setup of the unit. I am installing all the ductwork. I have no problem with that. I understand it all, and we've sized the unit properly. And but I cannot find an HVAC contractor that will talk to me because I'm installing a Mr. Cool, and they don't like doing work on systems that they have not installed. So I'm trying to find somebody to help me get this final hookup done on my HVAC system.
Zach, have you ever had a call like this?
Certainly. I mean, I think there's a lot of instances where people want to take on part of the job, be it for passion or for budget reasons, and they just want to farm out components of it. And that is typically not an attractive proposition to contractors like me. And I think the real reason is because there's some inherent liability there that we might take on that could create a like a callback situation, even if we're not taking responsibility for the whole job. And there's an expectation, whether it's false or not, that the homeowner doesn't know what they're doing on all fronts. Maybe it's in my case, it's a homeowner who's GCing the job, and maybe they just want us to set a complicated door, for example. Yep. And I'm thinking, well, do I want to set foot on this job because maybe the door they ordered is actually the wrong size? So I'll show up and it's incorrect. So I was expecting it to be a day job, but it turns into a 3-day job, but they don't understand that I have to charge them more for that. So I think that can be a little scary to do. I mean, have you ever experienced this trying to hire contractors, but for maybe smaller scopes of work?
I think it's different when you're working on a large project and you want a contractor to come in and help with a specialized area. Like you had said, your skill set stops at a certain point. You don't have the tools for that, just that part, but you're really trying to, in my experience, save on cost and do part of it yourself. I think the tricky thing is when you're working on larger projects, doing it yourself can literally take quadruple the time it would take for a professional to come in. I'm thinking of course, drywall in my head, for example. It's a DIYer looks at drywall and says, wow, that doesn't look so hard. And then you go to try doing it, and first of all, it usually turns out terrible, and it takes you weeks. And, someone that's coming through and working on that job site that's doing that piece of the puzzle could fly through that really quickly and really professionally. Because that's what they, that's what they do every day. So I think that's the tricky part about asking someone to help with a piece of the puzzle or trying to take on a piece of a puzzle by yourself.
That's a great point. You end up paying twice. Whenever people ask me about certain scopes of work to do themselves, let's say it's painting a room, do it yourself versus a painter. And we say, okay, no problem. The painter's going to charge $1,500 to do that. And the homeowner thinks $1,500 versus free, right? Those are the two
can paint. Yep.
Two options. And they say, well, it's not really free, is it? It's painter's tape, drop cloths. If there's any tools, roller handles, things you may not have, you have to buy those, and you have to buy the paint itself. Okay, so it's $1,000 versus free. Well, how much do you make per hour if you are employed? You're doing this at nights and weekends. There is an hourly rate for your time. And whether you weren't going to be doing something in your free time or not, your rate should still be factored in. So if you make $10 an hour and the project takes 10 hours, that's $100. Or if you make $50 an hour, factor that in, because your time is not worth nothing most of the time. And homeowners often don't factor that in. And usually once you factor that in, you're like, holy smokes, this is actually a tremendous value painting this room for $1,000 when it's actually going to cost me equivalent to $2,500. And I'm going to get a subpar result because I'm not particularly skilled at this trade, right?
Yep. In the case of this caller, I wonder if it's the ductwork that's maybe scaring off an HVAC contractor saying, I don't really know if you're installing all this correctly. So I'm a little nervous about just hooking up the system. What do you think?
Yeah, I think in general, HVAC contractors are not dying for work, and they're not dying for unattractive projects, right? There's plenty of people that have no heat, no AC, that are calling them for urgent calls that they can charge money and get paid for. So when something like this comes along, you could see why it would be, what's the most amount of money you're going to profit on this scope of work? Is it $200? Is it $400? Is that $400 worth what could be a larger than $400 liability? So I think how the caller can phrase this is as more of a collaboration and less of a, I'm hiring you to do a job. So you reach out to the HVAC contractor and you phrase it this way. Hey, I'm wondering, do you ever do like hourly rates for service technicians? I don't need the whole scope of work done. I need a small scope of work done. I'm someone who wanted to take it on themselves. I'm someone who's interested, but I know my limitations and I value your time and I'm going to compensate you for your time, is going to get you through more successfully than simply saying, well, I bought the equipment myself. I don't have the pressure gauges to do it. So I want you to just do this scope of work. And the person's going to be like, ugh, that doesn't sound very fun to me. But if someone's like, I'm just looking to get a technician out here when you guys have time, if you could just give me an hourly rate or a trip charge, whatever it is for the small scope of work, you're like, oh, all right, sometimes we have service guys, so they wrap up early. I could send someone over to you if they wrap up this job early, if it's not a time crunch. and then you're trying to sell your job and get better results that way.
Yeah. I think too, I've even tried, in certain situations where we do have a very specific system that a lot of contractors haven't seen, I've actually reached out to the company that made the equipment and said, hey, I'm having trouble finding someone to help me install this. Do you have a list of approved contract? A lot of them do have somewhat of a network. And so maybe you have to pay for them to travel a little bit further because they're not in your exact local area, but they're familiar with those systems. And so they're more willing to hop in on a project like that instead of somebody who is, typically installing completely different brand names and different kinds of systems and trying to figure this out for the first time isn't really worth their time.
I think that's a great point. And I think also understand if you have an unattractive project, you can't go after a contractor that has a lot of attractive projects. Those people have better jobs and they're not going to waste their time on you. But if you seek out the sort of less opportune marketing strategies, a business card on your supermarket entry board, they may be just starting their company. Maybe they left their former employee and they're trying to get off, but they don't have a big marketing budget, but they're looking to build a referral base. That's going to be someone who's going to say, well, what do I have to lose? I don't have a lot of customers, but I have the skills. I know how to easily do this. So let me go give them their time.
So would you say maybe if you're thinking about taking on a semi-DIY project or a project that you think you can do yourself, but you might run into some stopping points, either because of specialty tools or your skill level, maybe it's better to call the professionals first and make sure you can get someone on board before you decide this is the right route to go?
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Treat it like it's pre-construction. So it's very easy to go online and purchase a heat pump that gets shipped to you instantaneously. You can do that at the wee hours of the morning. But finding out whether a HVAC tech will come and charge it for you is something that you can't find out as quickly. And so I think it's important as a do-it-yourselfer to think of the full arc of all the problems that could come up. And unfortunately, you don't really know until you do it. But this is a good example of identify the things that you need professional help. Make sure you have access to those things before you buy the equipment.
Yeah, I think anytime you're trying to come up with a custom solution for your own home, you have to take into account there's a reason why people all do it a certain way. And sometimes trying to save a little bit of money on a custom solution is going to make other parts of the project more difficult or impossible, possibly. Impossible, possibly.
Possibly the perfect way to end that call.
Great advice. Thanks, Zach.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For information and inspiration on your DIY projects, go to thisoldhouse.com. And now it's time for one last thing, my favorite tool.
Hey Jen, it's Zach Detmore, general contractor for the show. My favorite tool is a pocket hole jig. So imagine you're trying to build a bookcase and you don't want the sides of the bookcase to have exposed fasteners or screw heads that you look at when you're looking at the left or the right sides of the bookcase. What you can actually do is use pocket holes in the shelves themselves. And it's basically a piece of metal at a really steep angle in reference to the shelf you're trying to drill, and it'll guide the drill bit, creates the perfect pocket to put a screw in, and that's called a pocket hole screw. It allows everything to be super flush, out of view, so it solves a lot of problems both for construction workers and DIYers, and it's a very inexpensive tool.
We'll see you next week on This Old House Radio Hour. Our show is distributed by and co-produced by LAist Studios and APM, American Public Media. This Old House Radio Hour was created and produced by Ember 20. Listen to new episodes of the podcast every Tuesday on your app of choice. You can follow This Old House on all the socials at This Old House, all one word. We'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Maggie Smith, poet and host of The Slowdown. Each weekday, I share a poem and a moment of reflection, helping you turn listening into a daily ritual. It's 5 minutes to slow down, pay attention, and begin the day with intention. Find it in your favorite podcast app and make the slowdown your new daily poetry practice.